Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? One of the biggest weeks I think I can remember in a long time in terms of just emotions riding high, the unpredictable happening from start to finish in the last 7 days, never mind what we've seen at the weekend, has been off the charts, it's been off the scales. And, you know, I said coming into this game, I expected this to be a real throwback match. Both managers and both clubs in a lot of ways coming into this in a lot of different parallel type situations. Both managers not really carrying any baggage into this game, which makes a change from both sides, never mind both sides at the same time. And I think really that's what we got from start to finish in this one. There was plenty of refereeing decisions, of course, on both sides that were very peculiar, it must be said. And ultimately, it went to extra time. We got the job done. Some new heroes were made, and like I said, coming into this, I expected this to be a real throwback match. I thought it was a great football match to watch, and props to Rangers where it came. Ultimately, on the day, the difference has been just that extra 5%, that extra 10%, that experience, and that top level of quality that we've got in the squad really does rise to the top. And Callum McGregor this week has just went on levels and levels. It was absolutely great to see him, just put the goal out there that got us, back in front in the match before, of course, eventually Callum Osmond, the hero, putting the cherry on top of the cake for us. In the video today, we'll break down what happened in the match, the good, the bad, the ugly, I suppose, and everything else in between. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know your big feelings and takeaways from this game, because from centre forwards to maybe even the defence as well, there's so much positive, I suppose, now going on in the squad in terms of who's the main runners and riders, who's influencing results, and really now for the section of the season we're in, who could be the main heroes, who are the guys that are stepping up and taking their chance, making it count. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because there was a lot of meat on the bones, as we like to say here, in this match in terms of really fight, hunger, desire, and a lot of good team play. And in the early stages of the game, before we have any of the contentious issues kind of roll into the match, I really did feel that Celtic looked a little bit more like their usual self compared to what we've seen on Wednesday. McGregor very firmly the deeper of the midfield three, and almost like a kind of man-for-man aspect here in the middle of the pitch here. Between Rangers and Celtic in the early goings, and for large periods of this game, the ball was focused out into the wide areas for both sides. Celtic very quickly got a bit of a sniff that this guy Jigga, although he managed to block some stuff and could defend in certain moments, was needing his pal Suter to bail him out, and was a guy that potentially down this side of the pitch we could potentially get some joy out of. And you did feel from Celtic that there was a real approach to going down the left a little bit more often, like we've seen from in the past. But like we had realised, or kind of seen in some of the heat maps and that kind of thing in the preview for this game, when Tavernier had played for Danny Roll against Kilmarnock, I think it might have been, the rest of the team went quite left-leaning, and you really did feel that they were quite happy to put Magoma on the ball and try and force some 1v1s with him and Ralston down this side, with Asgard kind of roaming into these little pockets. So it was a game of getting it into the wide areas quickly, and then trying to really just try and take advantage of a bit of poor defending and maybe try and get a half chance off the back of that. And the match is quite blustery, there's a wee bit of, action end to end. No one's really controlling possession or dominating the game in any real sense of it, because when the ball's coming out into the wide areas so often, we're coming into 50-50 situations, and the ball comes up, it goes back, it goes out for throw-ins, free kicks, all that kind of thing. And that's really where the first kind of moment of the match comes, where we get the offside goal for Negren, Dizamaida, whatever. Dizamaida's the one that's ultimately ruled offside. Now, I did have on this software a different toy that would allow me actually to do VAR lines very, very well, but it's not here anymore, so I don't know if there's a little bit of something going on in the background perhaps. But I did my best to try and draw some lines myself, trying to line it up with the last possible pixel that I've got available to me. They're not perfect, and what I've managed to do certainly is kind of nail the frame here. He probably is just like by the thickness of his boot maybe just about offside. And it felt like it was one of those moments where it kind of it's similar to the Falkirk match and some of the other kind of tense games that we've had recently, where just even the ball hitting the back of the net kind of breaks a little bit of the tension in the air, and it just kind of wakes everyone up and gets everything going. And one of the differences I did feel when it was still like 11v11 was we didn't quite have Negren as high to Kenny as we maybe had against Falkirk, and we maybe seen Dyson a little bit more kind of forcing, like as a free. The Celtic front three really did ask some big questions of the Rangers defence and really what position they were taking up, you know, whether to go forward and try and attack whenever the ball turned over, or be that bit more risk adverse and maybe hang back a little bit. But they'd kind of decided to let this boy Magoma off the leash a little bit more, and THROWBACK kind of would try and cover in here when possible with Jigger. That was made quite difficult for him because of the way Sriracha played in this game, and he was always just motoring up and down the line in this game and really giving them an extra headache, and it just meant that when we did move out to the left hand side we looked really good. But one thing I couldn't help but enjoy in this game, particularly whenever we were coming out with possession, was eventual man of the match Austin Trusty. There was some moments, particularly in the first half, where you'll remember them, sadly they're not in the highlight package, where he just kind of fixes his feet and his body shape, and he just takes up an extra like 15 yards up the pitch, just strides through, breaks through some lines, and puts them on the back foot, gets us moving forward. And there was a few moments like this that you can really tell from the way Trusty's seasons went to this point. He is like, play your best game possible. That's the mindset, that's the mode that he's given. And I was surprised that he won man of the match, don't get me wrong, but he played like extremely well overall. Not flawless, it must be said, but extremely well. And in a lot of ways, both teams were, a little bit unrecognisable. There was a good bit of fight and a good bit of battle in the midfield before any of the kind of the red card situations about to happen. Normally the mantra is, let's sit on McGregor. Quite often we had Chermiti off the, whenever we had possession and they were kind of retreating back in, especially when they went down to 10 men, he would be the one that would just kind of sit on McGregor as such, and then we would be forced to play out wide from there. And one of my worries coming into this, if this was the kind of situation that we had, was would Johnny Kenny be able to get some change out of the defence, out of the back three? And he gets his goal from a corner, of course, which is great. Kind of, what you want to see from somebody like Johnny Kenny and eventually the likes of Callum Osmond and whatever is, in the box, can they just put chances away? The good chances that come Celtic players' way, can you just make sure you can do that first and foremost? And he looked lively enough, and it looked like he wasn't a level apart, which I think was, the main fear coming into this was physically and just through the run of play and where openings came, would he feel like he's not up to the same standard? Because we know Suter is certainly a big, powerful defender. And, the boy Jig is, again, we could talk about him for a while, couldn't we? And Cornelius is a player that, again, I don't think you can totally write off as being a bad one. For me, I think he should have been sent off. I'm quite perplexed at how he wasn't sent off. And I think on that note, I will just go ahead and say, I also do believe Trusty should have been sent off, to be quite honest with you. I think that had happened the other way around. We would have been going bananas, because I think we just would have been. So for me, I think Trusty sees red, I think Cornelius sees red, and if this was 9 versus 10, wouldn't that have just been absolutely something? But we do get the flashpoint moment of Asgard on Ralston for the red card, which brings Rangers down to 10 men. And I think up to that point, when we'd went 1-0 ahead thanks to Johnny Kenny, we were starting to, we weren't quite as direct and we weren't quite as maybe effective or sharp is what we were on Wednesday, where it wasn't clearly like 3 passes and get into the box for a shot type thing. You did feel that same level of urgency, but it wasn't quite as explicit as that. There was an extra pass and build up, there was an extra just bit of control that came to us throughout the match. But when Rangers went down to 10 men, they made a really, really interesting change. They went to Brendan Rodgers' old favourite 4-3-2 if you go down to 10 men, and in doing so they moved James Tavernier into midfield, which I did not see coming, to be quite honest with you. I thought that was a very unusual move, and in moments in this game, because of the way Diamande then pushed on to play from the left side of midfield, it felt like at times a 4-2-3. They still made it really difficult for us to get into the middle of the pitch and to actually dominate the ball. They did a very good job of always cutting off passing lanes. And then as we went into the second half, Martin O'Neill said it in post-match, and I think we all felt it throughout this game, that, Rangers were actually still in this, where we're only 1 goal ahead. But Chermiti missed some absolute sea-bowl level sitters, which were, very pleasing to see, I must say. And, they didn't look, Rangers did not look like they did not have a threat in this game. They did very much look like they had a bit of a threat in the game. The boy Magoma got some joy down the left at times, and you feel that he kind of grew into the match at certain moments where he maybe did get a little bit of success. He would then feel confident to go again. And, you know, they did have spells in the game where you could tell they were really bursting everything out there, and they were quite happy within their shape where they could play with like 3 up and then maybe tighten back in with like Chermiti sitting back onto McGregor. At half time, Danilo came off for Gassama, and he just gave them a little bit of that right midfielder out of possession, you know, where he could try and stay with Sriracha perhaps a little bit more, maybe try and protect Jigga a little bit, as well as Tavernier, who, like, again, fair play to him, you know, for the shift he put in. You know, he definitely got his steps in. There's no two ways about it in this one. But stepping into midfield, his range of passing and just generally how he plays, it actually kind of suited him in a weird way. You know, it's probably a good part of the reason why there isn't that much actual footage in the highlight package, because really the game then descended into small periods of possession and almost like, you know, getting up the pitch with throw-ins, and, you know, no team really dominated the ball so much, but whenever Rangers did turn it over for themselves, they, you know, went together in numbers. And because we were trying to, you know, just, you could see the tension from Martin O'Neill especially. You could hear a lot of stuff coming from Maloney on the touchline, where we wanted that second goal, we wanted to go daylight, we wanted to make sure that we had that cushion in the game, that if something did eventually go against us, you know, we would have had that bit of protection and we wouldn't have had to worry about extra time. But you did feel like throughout that, you know, the first half of the second half, that we weren't really getting into the final third too much, and if anyone on the ball actually looked like getting into space a bit quicker, it might have actually been Rangers at times. James Forrest comes on for Tunetke, and I don't think that was a terribly surprising move. We see Daisen Maeda moving to the left-hand side, and I think targeting Jigga and going down this left-hand side was clearly like a plan of the manager, and getting Forrest into the game later on, I think was a really good kind of, you know, squad management kind of thing. We did question how many minutes Daisen would have in the tank on the clock from the physio coming into this one. I am personally astounded he made it all the way to like the 109th minute or something, given the prognosis for the Falkirk game that Martin O'Neill revealed, or maybe that was just a little bit of gamesmanship from Martin O'Neill, which, you know, you wouldn't put it past him. And Forrest added an extra level of kind of impetus and a new kind of drive into the team, where, again, covering like 10-15 yards very effectively going forward and laying the ball onto someone else in a more forward area. He was just doing a good job of, you know, being a right winger, being a right midfielder, and coming into play with other players. But I must say, it was a perfectly timed change to bring Johnny Kenny off for Callum Osmond and Ben Negren for Rio Hatate, because this just added an extra level of legs, and you really then felt 11 versus 10 happened at this moment. Hatate really with a big point to prove, didn't look anything like the way he looked on Wednesday night, which was brilliant. Wasn't quite back to his full strength, his full powers in that case of like actually making things happen. And between Hatate and Forrest, we had some great chances to score, nice shots from the edge of the box, rifling it off the crossbar, hitting it over for a rugby try, as it were, a conversion. In some cases, with very similar shots to the one that McGregor eventually finds. But Osmond did, like, you know, pique some Celtic fans' interest on Wednesday night with his little cameo performance, and coming on at the time of the match he had ample opportunity to make an impact in this match. And you really felt like, you know, I was saying this, I was at Barra's Art and Design with the Axom event with Paul John, and got to meet a lot of you guys there, which was brilliant. And I was saying to some of you, like, I speak to a lot of different football fans just through stuff that I do and I'm involved in, etc. And I was talking to a Fulham fan last Thursday or Friday, and they were telling me that had Callum Osmond stayed at Fulham, if you look at their forward injury crisis at the moment, he would have been in the Premier League this year, no two ways about it. He would have been a Premier League striker, and who knows what would have happened for him at that point, which made me feel kind of really like extra bad for him and his predicament. So like seeing him like in so many ways, and you can see it in the aftermath, and I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit on Callum Osmond, but huge opportunity for him to shine, and you really did feel that he was out there to take it. He was really kicking himself for that 1v1 that he missed, and I think we were all willing him to just slide that ball home and you know, just put the game beyond doubt. Martin O'Neill made a lot of jokes in the post-match about him missing that, how he might not have seen today had the result not eventually went in Celtic's direction, which was interesting. But the introduction of Hatate and Osmond helped us lift a gear a little bit. But Rangers responded sort of in kind in their own regard, you know, where Chermiti comes off for Miovski and Diamande comes off for Mikey Moore, who is like quite an attacking, fancies himself kind of left winger. And he had a lot of freedom. And again, you've seen that Rangers really did just try and double up on one side of the pitch. They very much wanted the ball away from Jigga's side of the pitch. They very much wanted to come down this left-hand side as often as they possibly could. And, you know, Celtic fans maybe see Miovski coming on and think, oh, he's caused us problems before, can he cause them again? And really, like, I think it's a huge testament to Trusty and Scales. I did want to say very early in the video that I think we got legendary goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel in this game. I thought he was fantastic. I don't think he put a foot wrong. He really was Again, similar to what I mentioned about Daisen Maeda, a real big kind of character plot and plot point in this game of flawless. Like really in this game, did not put a foot wrong. Really put the officials in a lot of cases in their place. Like some of the calls, the delays and some of the offsides and the ball being out and all the rest of it was just wild. And Casper was trying his best to not let anyone away with anything on the pitch or from the sidelines in that regard. So I just wanted to squeeze that in here since he's came up the now. But Rangers again in this kind of like, it looks now like a 4-4-1, but kind of off the ball. When we were building out, it would look maybe like a 4-2-3 or a 4-3-2. Smart football from them, well coached, and a lot of buy-in that you felt. And I think that's a huge part of, again, the accent of this game is buy-in. Both teams totally committed to the manager's instructions. Both teams really applying the team plan and looking out for the squad, the result together as a unit. And I think that's just what really made it a fun match to watch, for better or for worse, for all the moments in the game of red cards and penalties and handballs and all the rest of it. We lose Sriracha for Tierney and then we get to the penalty. Now for me, the penalty, like if nothing else, it's consistent, I think, because every penalty that's went against us, if you want to think about Tomoki Iwata, handballs behind his back and all the stuff that's went against us, if it's a shot on target, that seems to be the kind of the nail in the coffin of the decision. We've had decisions like that go for us. I just know that because it's like something I feel that we talk about quite a lot in terms of the shot on goal dynamic of a handball, even if it is from point blank range, even if it does ricochet off somebody. And I think when you see the replays, I think it does come off the point of his elbow. Everything else is totally valid. He is pushed, he is falling, he is like constricting himself, making himself smaller. And like really, I don't think there's a bad decision to be made. When it comes to the VAR element of it, I think, again, it's a clear and obvious error situation perhaps. Is it a clear and obvious error? Probably not. And it is consistent, that's the only thing. Do I agree with it? No, I don't think it should be a penalty, but I'm not surprised, really, is kind of what I'm saying, sadly. I think that's just the way it is. And that's the way it's went this season, so again, I'd be surprised otherwise. Now, one thing, I did mean to say this earlier on with the Trusty thing, right? Trusty not getting sent off. If you remember Yang gets set off for a red card for a high boot, and yeah, his boot was high, but he didn't actually touch anyone, so maybe that's just something we're way long overdue, perhaps, I don't know. These things balance out, they say. But yeah, the penalty is wild, but at least consistent. And in the dying moments of the game, they take off Magoma for Aarons and Raskin for Antman, and off we go into extra time. Now, I must say, at this point, when I seen that this was the move that had happened, and you seen this on the pitch, that Tavernier was now in CDM with two wingers beside him, this was just one step too far. Rangers' depth broke at this point. And when we came out for extra time, Callum McGregor scores his goal in the 93rd minute, which just, puts us back in control of the game. It's definitely not over. Rangers still do carry a threat because these guys are wide players. They want to run, they want to dribble, they want to try and play the striker. And anytime we do lose the ball, we do need to be mindful. We are only one goal ahead, and it is the very sharp end of the match. But I think the 11v10 element just became far too strong coming into this segment of the match, where the more substitutions that they made, just the more space opened up and the more regular we could get on the ball and actually make some connections where we're actually getting some chances away at the goalkeeper from different areas of the pitch. They eventually take off Jigga for Rothwell and move Tavernier back into right back, which he's going to love that. Before eventually Kieran Tierney puts the ball in for Osmond to again get one of those fox in the box finishes like we mentioned with Johnny Kenny. You don't need to be the biggest, you don't need to be the strongest, you just need to be good on the ball, and if chances come to you, you need to be in the right place at the right time. And what a ball from Tierney it was, by the way, where he zips this ball through three guys. Like, imagine you set this out as like cones, as like a little gate, hitting that ball inch perfect right into exactly where the striker is. Osmond does well to get in front of his man, stay strong, make sure he gets the connection, and where the goalkeeper is, how close it is to goal, it's of course going to go in. And what a goal for the wee man, like I mentioned earlier when when the substitution happened on the game. Great to see for him, and that's what you want at Celtic. And when you see young players in the squad, is give them their chance. Can they actually step up? And yes, it's not an ideal situation. We do want to see us strengthened further in the January transfer window, of course. Who knows about Iheanacho and all the rest of it? It's maybe a story and maybe some rumour busting, or I don't know what's, whatever. But like Johnny Kenny and Osmond have both been saying in the post matches of these types of games, they just want to be given that opportunity. They just need somebody to believe in them. And you really feel there's just that air of confidence, of optimism, of trying to be the best version of yourself, really back into the squad again. And when you've got guys in the team that are 19, Johnny Kenny's 22, playing in these attacking positions here, they really need built up and they really need to be given minutes and chances. And that's that's really the main thing that they've had over this week is plenty of minutes and plenty of chances. And for Callum Osmond, that has been a real surprise story of this little Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney interim era. Johnny Kennett's maybe a bit more foreseen just with the whole Europa League registration situation, as well as, the injury to Iheanacho and everything else that goes around it. And to see both of them absolutely step up, seemingly kind of out of nowhere, and show their value and show their place in the squad is a huge win. And yeah, I maybe kind of jumped past it as we talked about McGregor's goal, because we're just talking about the sequence of the extra time here, and it really is like I think a huge moment for McGregor as well in his Celtic career. He's had many of them, of course. I'm not saying this is like a new thing entirely, but for where he's at in his career and where he's at with, his standing in the squad, the club, everything that's going on at the moment, we all know he's been great without ever being at his best, and that's what we're all kind of really after with him. And it feels like his best is maybe here or right around the corner. So along with him and some of the younger players coming through, who knows about one or two of the other kind of, like, let's just call them fringe players at the moment, maybe even Balikwisha. McKeown didn't even play in this match. And where is Shin Yamada, by the way, in all this? So there's plenty going on. And, right around the corner, we've got a game against Midtjylland, or, Martin O'Neill's got a very precise way of pronouncing them. So that'll be a really interesting game. Then we've then got Kilmarnock at the weekend before the international break. And that's what Martin O'Neill probably expects his little interim package to consist of, which, again, is something I think we thought coming into this little period. That was just my own, interim, immediate term solution is what we're thinking about. I'm feeling a little bit lost because we don't actually have match ratings at this point, because League Cup games and such just generally don't get Opta coverage. So like every website and like stats vendor you can think of essentially don't really have statistics for it. This is one of the main reasons I love listening to Huddle Breakdown, because you just know, like, number one, Alan Morrison at Celtic by Numbers compiles his own handmade data set for Celtic exclusively, so he'll have data on this as much as he ever does, for every match. It's very consistent in that way, and it'll be probably a must listen to this week, of course. But I'm kind of lost at this point because I don't have any match ratings or anything to really go on beyond the actual just statistics of the game, which again on this particular website are very little. I do think Trusty played very, very well in this game. I did personally think somebody like McGregor, I'm trying to think of somebody else there actually, but yeah, I thought it would have been man of the match McGregor, actually, to be quite honest with you. Not to say Trusty isn't undeserving of it, far from. I think he played a great game. There was some moments in the highlight package, if you've watched it, you'll see it back again, where against Majowski and Gassama, these guys right at the end, where he maybe does get wrong-footed, doesn't get his body shape quite perfect, and maybe somebody like Schmeichel or Scales kind of bails him out, or maybe the striker just misses altogether. So he wasn't perfect, as I say, but he's been, again, another one of these winners in this interim period where, yeah, Carter Vickers is out for ages. He needs to step up. Did get a bit of a bang in this one, Trusty. Martin O'Neill did make reference to Dane Murray in the post-match, so we'll maybe see for Midtjylland if Trusty's even available for it. He had a really bad foot injury, and if it was a foot thing again, we don't want to fear the worst, but we've just got a habit of that kind of thing happening with centre-backs, don't we? Which is why I guess we needed 5 centre-backs in the summer to kind of mitigate for this eventuality, this inevitability, as it maybe feels like at this point. But I think he was great. I think Scales was great as well, but I just don't think he was maybe as eye-catching and some of the stuff he was doing as Trusty was. I thought Ralston again really shows you the high floor that he gives you. Tierney again coming off the bench, and I said this coming into the game, where whether you start with Sriracha or Tierney in a game like this, a cup semi-final that could have went into extra time, it's brilliant having both of them. Really, you can't lose. You play one of them for like 60, 70 minutes, you play the other one for the rest of the game, and happy days. And that really was really did help us maximise the 11v10 also, because Tierney came into this game and he wasn't the same level as what Sriracha gave us in terms of motoring up and down the line, but he's got that delivery, he's still got that attacking route to goal, and he still loves to play against Rangers, so you absolutely got a good bit of that from Tierney coming into this. Really happy for Osmond. I thought Forrest did great. I thought Engels was just smashing people and getting around the place and really just being a good derby participant in midfield in terms of not giving them an inch and making sure every time we were on the ball we got as much out of it as we possibly could. And there's maybe a little bit of a quiet hero again of the game. Feels like everyone is playing really well under Martin O'Neill. I would maybe say Taneke. maybe failed to do a little bit much or do what was expected into this game, because Jigga was seen to be the weak link. We did put him on him a fair few times, and did he get enough out of him? Maybe not. So that's maybe the only like borderline neutral to negative kind of point here. Maybe the Gren could have been a little bit more effective. Again, missed another chance in this one. And the day that he starts to put them all away, you know, we're going to be unstoppable, you know. So keep getting to that spot, Benny, and let's hope that they all start to fly in soon. But yeah, I think everyone to a man put in a great shift. And yeah, we look ahead to the Europa League now before Kilmarnock at the weekend. I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. On screen there now is some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy, including the hunt for the next Celtic manager, my kind of breakdown of all the candidates we've got. We have had a little bit of development on this, so we'll probably pick that up on the channel this week, as well as maybe one or two other bits and bobs around where the squad sits right now, and what do we think about the pecking order or the depth chart as it sits right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Hail, hail, and Moan the Hoops.